Hello, and welcome to another HSRC Connect. This is a very special edition. We are not broadcasting from our usual studio at our Cape Town office. We are broadcasting from the Birchwood Hotel, where our Engaged Research Conference is currently taking place. Now, this is a landmark pioneering conference that is held this year by the HSRC in partnership with the DSDI and the NRF. And thus far, we are currently in day 2 of the conference. We have spoken about not only engaged research, but we've also spoken about the importance of science diplomacy, for scientific knowledge not only to be democratized, but also to inform relationships and partnerships across institutions and across the globe. So I have a very interesting panel with me here today. Both of these guests have presented today. We have Dr. Blessing Masamha. He is our expert and leading researcher in agri-food systems, in AI, in digital technology. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you, Nicole.
And we also have Dr. Pauline Ngimwa. And I was privileged enough to attend a very interesting and exciting panel this morning where she was speaking about her experience of co-creation and some of the challenges that she faced in the field. So welcome. So the context and our topic of discussion is science diplomacy, but I want to really take a unique perspective. We want to inform our understanding of not only science diplomacy, but engaged research from the bottom up, from lived experiences. We want to live what we are trying to do in engagement and co-creation and participation. So I would like to approach this dialogue and this connect from the perspective of your expertise, and I'd like you to think about your expertise and your specialization and what that has meant for science diplomacy in general, but more so engaged research. And I'd like to invite you to start, Blessing, with your research on agri-food systems.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Very exciting engagement and discussion that we are having today, and a great opportunity to share the experiences that we have had in the domain of our research. I work particularly in the area of rural development, agriculture, but with particular focus on agri-food systems, food systems transformation with the gender lens, and also currently we are gravitating towards using emerging technologies such as AI in the food systems work. But we have worked on several projects, particularly not just in South Africa, but also in the continent, and with particular focus to countries like Tanzania, Zambia, and as far as in the West, Nigeria. So our work that we did with a particular project that was focusing on food systems transformation, leveraging digital and climate smart agriculture technologies in a quest to transform food systems to be sustainable, to be resilient, equitable, and inclusive. But in light of the current ongoing conference, where we discussed about engaged research and science diplomacy, you would see that our work was more informed by the diplomacy that we had, because we had to build bridges, partnerships with institutions in the respective countries. For example, we would look at the work we were doing in Zambia. We were not that going into that community, into that country with an extractive mindset, but we went there to build relations, to build networks. So our work kicked off with prior a multi-stakeholder workshop. It was a 2-day workshop that was constituted of government officials, the ministries, the different line ministries that focus on agriculture and food and environment. It included universities, the University of Zambia. It included civil society groups. It included NGOs. In the end, we actually managed to sign an MOU with the University of Zambia, and with particular in the Department of Agriculture, Economics and Development. That gave us an impetus, an acceptance, and our shared vision of how we need to transform our food systems in the continent actually was accepted. So you need to get that acceptance. And going forward, we then had to work with the lower level. We went to provinces. We went to the southern province. We also worked in the province of Lusaka, particularly in the city, because we were focusing on the landscape, the urban, peri-urban, and the rural food system continuum, to see what is going on in terms of how they use technologies, the food waste, food systems, food loss, and so forth. So it was a great opportunity to forge those partnerships. That diplomatic engagement that we had with Zambia, with the Zambian authorities, actually is sustainable. And any other project that South Africa, that the HSRC might want to work in Zambia is bounded by that MOU that we signed, that is actually active at the moment. It's the same that happened in Tanzania. We worked, revived our MOUs. We built bridges with Mzumbe University, Sokoine University of Agriculture, which I think is more doing a great work in terms of these technologies like AI use in agriculture and so forth. But in a nutshell, those engagements that we had, it managed us to build relations from the national level, which is the science diplomacy aspect, and the engaged research, which actually made us to engage with communities, with the line ministries, the lower level communities like the zones, the camps in Zambia, the zones in Zambia. In Tanzania, we worked so well and we left a mark, a footprint, an indelible footprint, which actually makes our work going forward easy. So I think we have managed to build a base, and in line with this conference, we can say science diplomacy in the African context, particularly focusing on the experience of that project. We managed to build some diplomatic networks, diplomatic relations, which will help us going forward.
Thank you so much. I do have a follow-up question for you, but I first want some insight from you, Pauline, because I know you've also worked within the African continent. Could you maybe just give us an introduction or a brief overview of your research and your work and the locality of it?
Thank you very much, Nicole, and my co-discussant, Dr. Masamha. I work for an organization called the Partnership for African Social and Governance Research, and our mandate is to enhance research excellence in public policy and in governance. So our research is mainly around policy issues, certain social policy issues. So we collect evidence through a co-creation process and influence its uptake in the policy space. We come from the perspective that for us to produce quality research, we've got to have the right skills. And because of that, we've also invested heavily in strengthening capacities of our early and mid-career researchers. And that is where I sit. I support the strengthening of capacities among these people, this cadre of researchers. We approach it from two perspectives. We recognize that we have researchers who are well-trained, but they need to be supported to produce quality policy research, and to do it from a perspective of an engaged researcher. So we help them work within communities of researchers and policy actors. So we focus on that level, that cadre of early and mid-career researchers, of researchers that are already practicing, by helping them embrace new methodologies on how to work in partnership, in collaboration with others. But we also recognize that we have students in the pipeline. They need to be helped to emerge as competent researchers and policy actors. And because of that, we work in the higher education space, and we work in partnerships with universities. I want to give 2 postgraduate programs examples. We have a master's program. We call it Master of Research and Public Policy. We have developed this program collaboratively with 13 universities in Africa, in 7 African countries, from West Africa, East Africa, and Southern Africa. This is a program that we designed in 2013. And the approach was on science diplomacy, because we brought together 13 universities. And we brought them together, co-creating the curriculum, content, and delivery. So we have 1 degree offered across the 13 universities. And that means that if I'm a student in 1 university, for example, in Tanzania, I can comfortably carry on in the same program in a university in Nigeria. And that in itself is a strength. But to get there, we needed a lot of diplomacy, because this program had to go through the various levels within the university to get it approved, and then take it to the national regulator. And we did that in 7 African countries. That was not easy.
Wow.
And it called for us to engage, get into partnerships, explain. The beauty of it is that we worked together right from the beginning, because the idea was conceived by the vice chancellors from these universities, and that made it easy. And after some time, we realized that we needed to get into a PhD program, because the master's program has dual pathways. You can train to become a policy researcher, but you can also train to be a policy actor. So the question was always, what do we do with the policy researcher students? We need to create a pathway for them. And therefore, we again developed a PhD program offered in 3 universities. We call them hub universities. In South Africa, we have University of Pretoria. In East Africa, we have University of Nairobi. And in West Africa, we have University of Ibadan, taking students from those regions. So that is why we call them hub universities. Again, we use the same approach, collaboratively developing the content with the universities and delivering the content. And again, it means that I can move from one university to the other, because the content is the same, the degree is the same, even though it is offered by the respective universities. So again, a lot of collaboration. We had to develop MOUs, and we are happy with the progress that we've made, because our graduates, because of the way we've trained them to be engaged researchers, they've been absorbed in places where policy research or policy analysis are needed. And we've seen that they graduate and immediately move on to make impact in that space.
So, besides universities, who are some of the other stakeholders that you've worked with?
We've worked with think tanks.
Okay.
Yeah, we've worked with think tanks where we have co-created knowledge with them, because think tanks are about research. But we're also keen in strengthening their capacities. So we have, for example, worked with a think tank in Nigeria that looks at health-related policy issues. Again, working with them to strengthen their capacities to be able to develop research that speaks to policy issues around health. So we do work with think tanks. We also invite the civil society, the media, because these are players within the policy space.
Yeah.
And helping them understand why they need to do policy reporting for media, why they need to have a policy understanding when they are doing their civil society work. So yes, we do work with others outside the universities.
And you said across 7 African countries.
Yes.
Wow. Wow. Thank you.
Actually, we have, for the early and mid-career researchers, we are in more countries than the 7 countries, because the 7 are just for the postgraduate work. So we've got participation from researchers from over 26 African countries. So they've attended our training, they've moved on. The unique thing about also our training, I'll be talking about the pedagogy that we use. So we use a pedagogy that is interactive, away from the traditional chalk and board, whereby you just come and give a lecture. We do a lot of engagement because we create scenarios where we use problem-based learning. So we create a scenario where we are addressing a particular policy issue. And because of that pedagogy, people have moved on. Some of the academics have used that pedagogy in their own work. So besides getting the research skills, their takeaways in form of pedagogy. And they found that our pedagogy is something that they can use. And that led us to have a big project on pedagogy in Africa.
I have a follow-up question for you, but I first want to go back to Blessing. You also mentioned some of the stakeholders that you've partnered with, and you have also mentioned that one of those stakeholders were universities. And that's the commonalities that you partner and you form key partnerships. How did you leverage universities for the purpose of your project within what you were trying to do in terms of collaboration and engagement, but also how could we better leverage universities to further this agenda of collaboration and engagement and co-creation?
Thanks once more, Nicole. I think universities are one of the major stakeholders, very important and very strategic when approaching these food systems and the climate change aspects. The way we worked with universities in this particular agri-food systems transformation project, I named 3: University of Zambia, Sokoine University of Agriculture and Technology, and Mzumbe University, both in Tanzania. So what we did, we realized that we are not the experts of Zambian context. Neither are we experts of the Tanzanian context. So we need strategic partners like universities and others that followed. But to be specific to your question about universities, we worked with universities to co-create, co-develop our proposal in the trying to make it aligned to the current food systems and climate change challenges that they are actually facing. And ours was to do some screening, literature search, and then screening to say which provinces. But that is information that we needed then to discuss and co-create with them. Is this the situation that is really happening in Zambia? Which is the worst affected climate change affected province in Zambia? Then their views were aligned to what we had primarily done the literature review on. So we co-developed the proposal together. We again diagnosed the problem together and not only with the universities, but with other partners. With the university again, we were able to develop the data collection instruments together. Because in the context of South Africa or Tanzania, the way we would ask questions or the context is different, so we need to customize each data collection instrument to the realities of Zambia, but guided by those who are aware and those who constantly do research in the context of Zambia. And again, you would see that we needed field workers, we needed enumerators, people we could trust. You need a trusted institution, an institution that is aligned with government priorities and also trusted by the community. So we had to work with the university, and we got our field workers from the postgraduate students that were working with lecturers and so forth, who were engaged in research, because we wanted people who are used to data collection. So in the process, we were trying to have a part of engaged research, beginning with co-creating again with them most of the key steps of the research process in this particular study. So we went on to do the same in Tanzania. So our field work, our data collection was basically driven much by the university, but also working with agriculture departments, because we needed to go to the community, but at the same time, we needed agriculture extension workers who were at the camps, and those are the ones who were taking us to communities, to households.
Yeah.
Yes, and they will tell you, this is how we do things in the cultural, the epistemic component.
Yeah.
Yes, of how you don't get into a community and you do things that are not aligned to their own cultural and way of doing things. I remember in Zambia, in Chirundu, this is a very fun part. There's a home brewed, it's not beer, it's not alcohol, it's a home brewed beverage, should I say, called Chibwandu. I don't forget it. It's called Chibwandu. It's brewed from maize, bean, and so forth. And when you get to a household, I arrived with the field workers there, and before you do anything, they give you Chibwandu, and you are not supposed to refuse. So now we said, how do we deal with this? And we had to say, but we should have done this in the training, but we didn't have someone from that community. So what we did is say, no, we have containers. Can you give us, because right now we have taken something. So we get into the container, take the Chibwandu into the containers, and then we are good to go. What we do with the Chibwandu later on is fine. But I'm trying to say, you become part of the community.
Yes.
You engage with them. So that's part of engaged research. So we did the same in Tanzania, and going forward, I think we need to build stronger exchange programs. The science councils and the universities, the way we work, I think there must be a much more structured way, deliberate, that can even have some exchange programs from other African continents coming to HSRC, the students that we have worked on. And we have tried to do that with flagship projects like the AYGS conference, that annual program that we do. I think we had 4 the previous AYGS that we held in Mpumalanga University. We had two students from Zambia who were part of the data collection of the agri-food systems. We had one from Tanzania, Patrice Majuva. She's a lady. She came, but it was an engagement, an opportunity that came out of the project that we did. So we built such a network, and that diplomacy component, it builds capacity. And like my fellow discussant, Dr Ngimwa, was saying, the process was now to try to train them. How do we train them to be able to transform, to bridge science and policy?
That's exact. You actually stole the words out of my mouth, because I was going to say that based on what you're saying, the university acted as a bridge between you as a knowledge verification source, but then also as a source into the community, into that contextual insight.
Yes, that's very true. It did. But we saw a gap, which I think that's why Dr. Pauline is here. She highlighted that science policy gap. How do you translate that scientific information into palatable information that a policymaker can actually take and improve? And also, how do you actually advocate for policy uptake as a result of the study that we have done, which is actually the one of the key objectives of the HSRC. Our mandate is to generate evidence
for policy
and inform policy. And when we inform, but the uptake part is the key thing now. Why is it that there's a limitation in terms of uptake and so forth? So this is the area now where we need a lot of science diplomacy to actually transform our continent. But it did not end like that. There's another project that we worked on within the developmental capable. It was in the developmental capable and ethical state division. But I was working from another division. They sourced my expertise as well. So this project, we were working entirely in the city of Joburg, focusing on traditional food systems, with particular focus on consumption of traditional foods, which I think we have been talking about the indigenous knowledge systems and so forth. As you know, Johannesburg is a melting pot of migrants from all over Africa and beyond. So we were trying to look at how the food systems, transformation, supply chain, and consumption, and so forth, and nutrition in the end. But we were working with the University of Newcastle University in the UK, as well as York University in the UK as well. So we go beyond even the continent to have those the science diplomas with the North.
Yes.
So, because those partnerships that we have with those universities, with HSRC, enabled, for example, in my case, when I traveled to the UK as part of data analysis, visit with housed within the Newcastle University and the York University, it was an eye opener for me because I had to present the findings. I discussed with the policy panel at the Newcastle University and shared experiences, and they shared their experiences in terms of how they are translating science into policy. So that was an experience which, by that time, I didn't know about science diplomas, but we were doing science diplomas.
I'm going to have to stop you there because you're already jumping to the next question about international relations. But before we get there, I'd like you to come back to this issue of partnerships with universities, because that's predominantly, or that's your main stakeholder, you're partnering with universities. What has been your process? What has been the benefits of partnering in terms of skills and learning with universities? Have you found that they play that role as a bridge between yourselves and the community? And how do you think they could be better leveraged for engaged research?
So yeah, you're right. Our work has evolved working with universities extensively, particularly in this area of capacity strengthening. But also beyond that, we work with universities to generate evidence. So our work is not just working with them to develop the early and mid-career researchers, but we invite them to co-create knowledge with us. Looking at partnerships with the universities, there are benefits for that. We are able to leverage the existing expertise to support where there are gaps. I'll give you an example. One of the universities, when we started the master's program, had a capacity gap in a particular area of policy analysis. But one of the other universities had a lot of expertise in that area. So we were able to facilitate one of the faculty members, a professor in that university, to come to this university that lacked the capacity and stayed there for about 3 months, helping through, literally teaching a whole module in that university. During COVID period, universities in Nigeria also had an issue of nationwide faculty strike. And we were able to get their students to participate in learning in University of Pretoria. So learning did not stop because there were industrial strike and also because of COVID-19. So we've been able to leverage expertise. The other thing that we've done is that we encouraged faculty mobility. As we speak right now, this month we've had faculty moving around, visiting each other. So we've had university from University of Pretoria going on to University of Ibadan, University of Nairobi coming to University of Pretoria in Ibadan. Right now as we speak, this week we've had university from Ibadan coming to University of Nairobi. And what that means is that when they meet, they have an opportunity to co-supervise, which in itself is a big thing. Because if I'm being supervised by my own faculty, but also a faculty member in another university, that can only strengthen the relationship. So there are those benefits that we have encountered. Coming to working with the community, because of the nature of the training, we advocate for engagement with the policy space. And we realize that you really have to take these students to that space. So we've created partnerships with the policy institutions. And the master's program has a long break where we emphasize on the need for industrial attachment. So we identify places where they can go and be attached. They go to policy think tanks, they go to government agencies. So that is our way of reaching out to the community and working with them. So yes, we have that opportunity to do that. The research that we do with the universities, in some cases, we have to go to the community. And the university in this case serves as the broker. Just like in his case, the universities serve as the broker between the researchers and the community. So yes, there is a bit of that. But our main emphasis is taking the students out to that space. But we have to create the relationship. The same happens with the PhD program. We encourage our students to go out to the policy space so that they can get the practical know-how, that experience, which becomes very easy for them to understand that, when we talk about this issue of policy, this is what it means. Because this is a multidisciplinary program. So I could be coming from the health sector. I have no knowledge of policy, yet I'm doing policy studies. So I need to get to that practical space so that at least I understand. So that's how we engage with the community beyond the universities.
I want to come back to what you mentioned about pedagogy and how you were saying it emphasizes and it embeds interactivity and co-creation, which is relatively new in some spaces, right? And I want to understand how receptive were some of the universities or the students or the faculty members, for that fact. How receptive were they to these alternative approaches and co-creation?
I would say this is an investment in terms of time. I'll give an example. When we did the master's, we designed the master's program. We realized that you really had to bring the real world into the classroom. And we developed what we call e-cases. E-cases are basically the teaching case studies, but in an electronic format, where you collate video clips, audio, images, and create a case. And what that means is that you're literally bringing the real policy issues to the classroom. For example, the case of the oil spills in the Niger Delta. If I'm a student in Kenya, I have no understanding of Niger Delta. But if I do that case study, go get the clips of the policy issue. Look at the oil spills in Niger Delta. Look at the community and the struggles that they have to go through. And then get to understand this is really the policy issue that we are dealing with. Now, to be able to do that, it is time investment. Yes. It's not something that is easy, and initially there was resistance. But since students have those memorable moments and having the real experience and having better outcomes, learning outcomes, it encourages the faculty to get involved in this alternative pedagogy. Out of that work, we were able to make a case with FCDO to support a huge project on pedagogy in the African universities. And we were able to train the faculty beyond our networks. So we were able to train them on better alternative pedagogies at the university. And this became so important during the COVID sudden shift to electronic learning. And when you listen to the testimonials of the faculty who went through that training, you can see that actually there is need. And like I had said in the beginning, when people go through that pedagogy from our perspective, then they're able to say, wait a minute, if I use this pedagogy with my students, I have better outcomes. So initially, yes, there is some level of resistance, but gradually there is acceptance when you see the benefits of using the alternative pedagogy.
Okay, so that's promising, eh?
Yes, it is promising. Yes, actually there is demand. We participated heavily in creation of Kenya Open University that was launched last year. So we used a lot of our people who had gone through our alternative pedagogy training to work and contribute to the formation of that Open University. Yeah.
Okay. So I think what I'm hearing is obviously partnerships and collaboration is fundamental to the co-creation process. And part of the science diplomacy movement, part of engaged research, is the ownership of localized knowledge, contextual knowledge, right? We have a movement to democratize pedagogies and knowledge and science, coming with an African perspective, for example. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I want to come back to international partnerships, right? Power is always a dynamic, a difficult dynamic that we'll have to deal with in any relationship, however diplomatic. And I want to tap into each of your experience with international partnerships and collaboration. And how do you then diplomatically negotiate those collaborations in a way where you can assert the power of your contextual knowledge, the power of partnering with an institution like the HSRC and where you work in. I really just want to tap in and explore this issue of contextual knowledge ownership and how you navigate that in international partners. Because a lot of the times, I'm sure you've experienced, international partners can come with their own agenda. And how do we diplomatically engage in ways where our voices and our agenda is also inclusive and really contributes to the mutual benefit of the collaboration. So essentially, I'm asking you to speak about power dynamics in science diplomacy from your experience with having discussions and dialogue with international partners. And then I'll go to you.
Okay. Thanks, Nicole. It's quite a topical and most interesting discussion point, given the current global geopolitical tectonics, should I say, tensions that are ongoing. I think science diplomacy in that context, as you have explained, it speaks to issues of, I think it starts with whose idea is it? Who comes up with an idea? So if I would take words from the minister's speech yesterday, he said that we must have a sovereign research agenda. We need to have our own sovereign research agenda. Once we have our own sovereign research agenda, we must be able to have dynamics and a deliberate funding strategy to drive that research agenda. It illuminates, that statement comes out well in the context of your question, where now, if I can draw experiences from some of the international partnerships that we had in that project of food systems, indigenous traditional food systems project. The funding was primarily coming from the British Academy, and there are ties to that, strict terms and conditions that are tied to the way how us as partners in the Global South are going to be players in that particular project. Yes, we would be happy. We have secured funding, and we have managed to strike targets. But underneath, there are dynamics that, after you are into the project, then you begin to grapple. So we have had these, and some of the issues are to do with who is going to own the data, who's going to be the custodian of this data, how is the data going to be used, and who's going to write about it. When I want to write, do I have to first consult our international partners first, and so forth? So there are a lot of terms and conditions that become tied to these international partners. They are very good, but we need to have strategies of how the dynamics of power can shift in our favor, because we are the custodians of the project, because it's being done here. So it must serve our interests, because they will come with the project and say the project is like this, the objectives are this, we've already crafted, and here it is, the money is here. So in the Global South, we tend to be actually hoodwinked by the money, and then say, at least, but let's do it. But we need to have that sovereign research agenda. We need to have that deliberate funding strategy of funding our own research and development agenda, such that whoever comes wanting to do research, we accept. We have international partners, but they come and fit into our own agenda. This is what is of interest, of priority to us in the meantime, and as far as food systems is concerned. This is of interest to us, and as far as climate change is concerned. So we are able to drive an agenda that strictly speaks to us, and that gives us a negotiating power, because we have something that we are putting there. We have an intellectual property there. We have a monetary muscle that we are also putting there. So I think to solidify, and it comes also at the international level, at the country level, where now you can give an example of some of these treaties. For example, the African Growth Opportunity Act, AGOA. So it's an opportunity that facilitates trade between the global south countries, not just South Africa, but about 32 of these countries, African countries, by having no tariffs. So the science diplomacy aspect comes into play because we then faced with situations where they are, because always you must know in international relations, there are permanent interests. There's no permanent friendship. So if the interest changes, you must be able to have some plans in place. Because if you look at the AGOA now, it has already expired, and the tariffs were increased. Now, how do you bring in science and try to work through our ways so that we reduce the damage, especially in the food, the trade in food products that do happen. The whole value chain, supply chain is affected, from the employee to the trade, the income, the whatever. So taking it from that angle, I think we need, as Africa, to be very self-reliant, find ways of generating our own sovereign research and development agenda, pool resources to fund our own research and development agenda. I hope you give me an opportunity to speak about some of these.
Yes, I'd also like to just touch on, I know you do work in the AI and technology space as well.
Yes.
And you mentioned two very important concepts that maybe you want to reflect a little bit more on with examples, would be appreciated, about custodianship and about data rights and ownership. And particularly when it comes to AI, the boundaries between geographies become a bit blurred.
Thank you so much. I think this is a technology which in my first day presentation I said it's a revolutionary. It's a revolution. Whether you like it or not, the revolution will sweep you. But it's coming at a time when we are, yes, we commend a lot of efforts that you had being presented on what is being done in terms of data centers. I think we talked about 23 data centers across Africa. But are we really ready enough to embrace artificial intelligence with quite a number of still challenges where we are lagging behind, particularly if you look at our data structures, our data, we don't have repositories of data that have been curated enough to speak to certain, and those data of the data centers that we have, do we have sort of IPs that are going to protect us? Because whoever is going to control the data is going to have the narrative. Data is the new currency. It's the new universal currency. So in light of our African context in the meantime, we don't have, if we have the AI applications that are being rolled out now, the data, each time you inquire and get an answer, you are depositing data in there. So whoever is going to stay with our data, who are the ones who are creating AI. We are not part of, I think this statement kept on being repeated. I said it in the first division, say, we are not on the table, but if we are not on the table of AI development, we are the menu. So what it means then is we are not part of the co-creators of AI. Once we don't own those technologies. So whatever is going to be done, we are the users. we are the experimentation units and the users. But yet, we have opportunities where we can leverage and coming in the AI value chain. And one of those was clear. We have rare earth minerals. If you go to, you come here in South Africa, we have cobalt, a lot of rare earth minerals. You move up Zimbabwe, you move Botswana, up to DRC, and then you go to the Sahel region. Those are the drivers of the AI. Will not work when you don't have the infrastructure, the gadgets that need those rare earth minerals. So it's like a second scramble for Africa, because those rare earth minerals are required to drive AI. And by the way, the economy of AI is in one company in the US. It's much bigger than that of Africa combined. So how are we going to leverage that? We need to have data centers where we are going to protect our data, where we are going to have IPs, rights, and you have that ways of having confidentiality, privacy issues, all to do with AI. Are we prepared enough at the policy and regulatory framework levels and ethics? No, we are not. But we are making efforts towards. But are the efforts significant enough to keep track of the fast-changing technology? I don't think so. So these are questions that we keep on want to ask ourselves as scientists. We need to sit down. Policies are things that we can craft, pool resources, and have some community of practice across regions. Pool resources, pool expertise, and then we are good to go.
Thank you. Pauline, I actually want to come back to you for the same reflection, particularly because you've mentioned about African ways of doing things, African ways of learning, and I know you work in the knowledge and skills space. I want you to reflect on maybe some of the challenges with international partnerships. How did you assert your agenda of what needed to be done and driving co-creation, and balance that with maybe if there was resistance?
Because we are an African organization focused on African challenges, problems, we are very keen on the sort of relationships we have with the international community, organizations. And we're very intentional that we are the ones driving the agenda. That's easier said than done. But we have made efforts towards that. And some of the projects that we have with international organizations, we've been privileged to be the lead organization. And that gives us an upper hand because we are the ones driving the African agenda. And we're inviting these international players to come and work with us. So we've been fortunate in that end. I want to give the example of the e-cases that I talked about. This was an innovation that we saw from University of Minnesota. We liked the innovation, and we invited University of Minnesota not to come and do the cases for us, but to come and work with African faculty through a transfer of skills and knowledge. And then we separated once we got the skills, and we carried on. We made so many cases as African faculty away from University of Minnesota. So they came, we worked with them, they helped us understand the principles and the know-how, and then we separated ways. The one around the pedagogy, the FCDU project that I mentioned, we were the lead organization, but working with University of IDS Sussex. They came in to help to work with us on issues around quality. So yes, we needed them to come and help us, but we were the drivers as the lead organization. So yes, we've been intentional in working with international community, but we have tried as much as possible to drive the agenda. A number of our funders are foundation funders. US foundations are very good because they advocate the issue of co-creation. There is a danger that the co-creation might drift away, but we have had the opportunity to work with them, where they come and we address the issues together through a co-creation process. So we've done that with a number of foundations that support our work. So again, that way we are able to manage the power relation. So yes, it is difficult, but we've been privileged. I would say that we've been privileged to be in a situation where we are either leading as the main convener, or we are working with foundations that are willing to co-create with us and therefore driving the process. We have a big research project with University of Manchester, but this is an African project, African cities. So University of Manchester works with African researchers, and again, in that project, we try to manage the relationships. And I wouldn't say that there has been issues. It's kind of a reciprocal. There's something that they bring, but also we are the owners of the data. So that way we are able to own the research agenda. Yeah.
So we are coming to the end of our panel discussion. So I'd just like to invite you for one closing remark. I'll start with you, Pauline. If we talk about, I want a future-focused reflection. Within your context of knowledge and skills, what role can engagement, I'm not going to say engaged research, but engagement and co-creation help advocate for science that is diplomatic in terms of learning and skills, the future of learning and skills?
Moving forward, we've seen a lot of emphasis on collaborations. In PASGR, or the Partnership for African Social Governance Research, we've been a pace setter in this area because we work with partnerships. What we do, as our name indicates, we work in partnerships in everything that we do. Research, knowledge generation, or skills development. So moving forward, we can only intensify these engagements. It's an investment. You have, in the morning, there was a lot of talk around relational research.
Yeah.
So there has to be a lot of relation building. And we've done this. We've done this, so we can only intensify the kind of engagements that we have. But also we have to identify the right collaborators. Because if you don't have the right collaborators, then it becomes very, very frustrating. And in the end, you will not be able to achieve your objectives. So on the area of skills development, we are looking into expanding our network. We have those 13 universities, but we are looking into expanding those networks. We are just about to sign a memorandum of understanding with Arua. Arua is a big convener of research institutions, research organizations. So by partnering with Arua, then that gives us an entry point into the research universities in Africa. So identifying the strategic partners, the right partners that you want to work with to create the impact that you want is the future of our collaboration in as far as skills development is concerned. Yeah.
And for you, in closing, what is the future of agri-food systems and AI specifically? What does engagement look like for the future research agenda?
Thank you, Nicole. I think if you bring in AI into the context of food systems, you see a pathway, a transformative pathway a huge transformative pathway that AI is going to play in the entire food systems context. And I see into the future, by anticipatory planning, you can actually see that we are moving towards a better planning, better farming. For example, they recently signed MOU between the Human Sciences Research Council and the South African National Space Agency. You heard the kind of work that AI will play. The satellites, the use of satellites in checking soil nutrients, in checking actually how to see the amount of fertilizer, the amount of moisture, what do we need to do. It also extends even in the supply chain to check entire food storage, food safety protocols. It reduces food waste and so forth. So we see AI in a positive way in transforming food systems to be resilient. The inclusive part of it will need to capacitate people that are working in the food supply chain so that their skills they are in pace with the AI. But we see a transformed food system through AI use having to be equitable, resilient, inclusive, and sustainable. So that's the focus. But we have to do certain fundamental things right so that we can leverage it to our advantage. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining the panel. So as you've heard, science diplomacy and engaged research, it's complicated, it's complex, it's multi-layered. And what we've heard from our panelists today is that engagement it's not a process, it's not even an outcome or an output. It is something that has to resonate through the entire value chain of research, of science, of scientific production. And it's very important that we start this conversation. We've started the conversation in the area of agri-food systems. We've spoken about AI and also learning and knowledge and skills across the African continent. The most important thing is that we have the dialogue, that we address these issues, and we have these very important conversations. I'm Dr. Nicole van Rheede. Thank you so much for joining us for this HSRC Connect. Remember, join us again where we connect you to social science that makes a difference. Thank you so much.